Hello, Anamaria.
Hello.
I'm seeing that we managed actually to get this to go live on YouTube.
My God, we are live. I hope I'm not going to say anything too problematic that cannot be corrected. No, I don't think so either, even though my paper is about controversy and disagreement, so that would be suitable.
Right. I'm very excited to hear more about it. I'm guessing that we should give one more minute for a few more people to gather up, and
Absolutely.
then we'll start.
I'm glad that tech works. It's never a given, not in this world.
So how are things in Sweden at the moment?
In Sweden, I mean, God knows. I live in Lund, which is a small university town, and half of the students have already left in March because the university is closed. So I don't feel much difference. Plus, like my work is very in isolation. My interaction with other colleagues is minimal when it comes to physical things. So it doesn't really change so much. But when you look at the country as a whole, doesn't look very good. Definitely not in contrast, not in comparison with Germany or with our neighbors, Denmark or Norway or Finland.
Yeah, a very different strategy was followed apparently.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the strategy exactly was, to be honest. We will find out, as our chief epidemiologist says, we will find out next year, this time, if the strategy was successful or not. But so it doesn't seem, the numbers don't seem particularly very good. I was just reading that probably another 40, 50 persons died recently. So
Remains.
Germany is done, right? Like you don't have any more cases.
No, there are cases, but they're stable numbers at this point. They've stabilized quite a lot. Okay, I think many more people have gathered up based on the participant list I can see over there. So I would like to take this opportunity and welcome everyone to the second online research seminar, ZeMKI online research seminar for this semester. We're very happy to have with us Anamaria Dutceac, Segesten. I hope I did a good job in pronouncing it.
You did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Very
it's
happy
not
to hear
common that it happens.
It's not an easy name. Yes, we're very happy to have Anamaria here. Anamaria is senior lecturer in European Studies at Lund University. She holds a PhD in political science from the University of Maryland, the United States, and has spent time as a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Copenhagen. She writes a lot about nationalism, collective identity, and conflict. And the way some of you, I'm sure, know her from is from different projects that she's currently conducting, investigating the role of social media in democratic politics. Her work has appeared in journals such as Social Media and Society, Information Communication Society, Memory Studies and Comparative European Politics, among many other venues. And today she's going to be talking to us about disagreement in Facebook comments and user engagement. And the results would be from a mixed methods study. So Anamaria, I'm going to make you a host now, and the floor is yours. Once you're finished with your presentation, people can ask questions. Those of you attending, you can simply use the raise hand function, and Anamaria will pick and choose different persons to address questions and give you basically the microphone. All right, Anamaria, over to you.
Thank you so much. I feel the host responsibility bearing heavily on my shoulders. I hope I will manage to do this appropriately. But anyway, I'm very happy to be able to share some of the results.
Sorry, just 1 second. I don't seem to be able to make you a host from here live.
Well, then you will have to continue to be the host.
Oh, no. There you go.
Yes, it says I am the host.
Perfect. Okay.
All right. As I said, it's a heavy responsibility to be the host of all these digital things, but I hope it's going to be working out finally. And as I was going to say before, I'm really thrilled to share some of this new research that we've been conducting and working for some time. It's not yet published, but it's hopefully in the pipeline, as they say. So I will share with you these results, and hopefully you will be later able to find this in a publication. So let me try to share my screen, and we can proceed with the presentation. Again, make note of any questions you guys might have, and I plan to talk for maximum 30 minutes because I would really like to engage in discussion. And I think that's the most interesting part of this conversation. Just 2 seconds, let me see how I do this share screen, and then we can proceed. So as you see, our team consists of 4 different people, myself and my colleague Michael Becerra, together with Nils Holmberg and Didrik Nihoster. And we have this multidisciplinary team because the project in itself is quite multidisciplinary, as we use this kind of mixed method approach to understand if common fields on Facebook affect the way users of Facebook interact with news posts. So we're interested in this idea of controversy, and there's been quite a long theoretical discussion about controversy in news content, and I think it's already kind of a known fact, almost a truism, that conflict sells news. That's why we have presentation of news in this kind of horse racy terms: who's the first, who's the second, who's the biggest winner, who's the biggest loser. For example, reporting elections or opinion polls as if it would be a sports match or if it be a war. The same thing goes about clickbait. I think most of us have been exposed to clickbaity titles on social media as well as in tabloid newspapers. Find out how you can be affected by this new computer virus. 10 ways in which you can, etc., etc. So these kind of problematic, controversial titles or news framing have been known to interact to affect the interaction of readers, of users with the news. So the question that we want to find out is whether or not this happens if we move the attention from the editorial to the citizen-oriented cues. In which way the comments play any role in this kind of news engagement. And we define news engagements in 3 ways. One is attention, and we particularly refer to visual attention, and I'll describe in more exact terms how we define that and how we measure that in a second. We also look at selection, the likelihood of a user to click on the Facebook news post in order to read a full article. And distribution, the likelihood of a user to want to share the Facebook post that contained the news item. And again, controversy has been defined in many ways. I think the most interesting and the simplest definition is to be taken as a portrayal of disagreement, basically the difference of opinion between 2 or several standpoints. That is controversy. And again, as I said before, it contributes to increased news values, and this is something that is studied not only in a national context but also transnationally. That which happens, which is different on social media, is that editorial cues, for example, placement and size of news, disappear, and that leaves the users a little bit unguided. Thus, they are perhaps looking for replacement cues in order to determine whether a news item is worthy of their time and is worthy of sharing. And that's what Messing and Westwood called socialization of news consumption. So instead of editorial cues, we have now what we call community cues, and that can be quantitative cues such as the number of likes or the number of views if we're looking at a video, the number of shares, or the number of comments that a certain social media post has received depending on the platform and the way they are organized. So these are the community cues that are reflected in popularity numbers. There are also qualitative community cues, basically the comments that are to be found underneath the posts, either on Twitter, on Facebook, or on other social media. We're focusing on Facebook because it is the most widely used news. Facebook is the most widely used platform that has the highest incidence of news, being a news provider. And this is something that the Reuters Institute at the Oxford University has demonstrated in their analysis across various environments and countries. However, taking these community cues, different research, experimental research, has tried to disentangle the effect of quantitative and qualitative cues. And what we know so far is that likes, the number of likes a certain post has received, or the number of views, if we look at a video, does not really quite affect the way future users want to interact with that post. Negative cues, for example, downvotes, if you're looking at, for example, Reddit, they seem to have an effect, and the effect is depressing the likelihood to want to engage or want to be part of that conversation. For example, we see here that user comments, which are the qualitative community cues we are focusing on, seem to be the ones that really influence very much the type of behavior in Gwirsman's experiment, looking at specifically visual attention. So user comments were that community cue that had the most effect on increasing user attention. In a relatively recent article by Sulflov and colleagues, we also see that comments play a role, especially if there is a disagreement between the so to say ideology or the positioning of the main article and the comment field. Again, their experiment only included one comment, as you see in the graph attached here. So if there is a disagreement between the slant of the news article and the comment that they experimented with, then there is a likelihood to increase attention. So that led us to think that there must be something going on when it comes to attention. And our hypothesis is that when users are presented with a post that included a pair of comments in disagreement, their visual attention to the comments will increase. So when we have comment 1 saying yes and comment 2 saying no, that will basically be a clue that this is worthy of more visual attention. The second hypothesis we want to test is the likelihood to want to read the full article. And we hypothesize here that if there is disagreement in the comment fields between two comments, the likelihood of users to read the article will increase because controversy or disagreement will likely increase their curiosity. And then third hypothesis has to do with distribution, the likelihood to share a Facebook post. And we want to hypothesize that disagreement in the comment fields will reduce the likelihood to share the post, because sharing is a pro-social activity. In other words, you are sharing for the benefit of others rather than for yourself alone. The risks associated with sharing controversial information are too big to your social persona, so you would like to avoid that. And there will be less sharing going on when there is disagreement in the comments. Finally, we want to see that hard and soft news, whether hard and soft news are actually behaving or generating different behaviors, because the previous literature has not really been including soft news in their experiments or in their analysis, and has primarily focused on what we define as hard news, news that have high societal relevance, that pertain mostly to economic and political realms. But since we're looking at social media, and since social media is what we know as a third space where politics represents a minority of the overall news production and news exposure, then it will be interesting to compare the news about economic and politics with news about entertainment, culture, sports, and the like. So that's basically what we wanted to test. And the way we did this is to do two things. One is to perform a selective exposure experiment that included an eye tracking moment and a survey. We used, again, a convenient sample of Swedish students that were roughly evenly divided between females and males, most of them being undergraduate students of various subjects. We did a little survey and found out that our sample was kind of biased in favor of hard news about politics in particular, but also somewhat interested in society, but not at all interested in classic soft news categories such as sports or entertainment. We also asked about their patterns of social media use, in particular Facebook, since it was the most common spread medium. 57% said that they checked their Facebook feed several times a day, which fits with the general information we have about Facebook users. 55% reported having reacted to posts in the past week. 29% said they commented, and even fewer, and this is worth to keep in mind for later, 11% only shared a post. And this is also something that fits with the standard profile of the Facebook user, even though the percentage of sharers is slightly lower in our sample compared to the worldwide average, if you wish. Then we decided to imitate the Facebook platform by manipulating several Facebook posts while maintaining the feel of the Facebook platform. So we downloaded all the Facebook posts of the Swedish newspaper Aftonbladet from the year 2017, which was 1 year prior to us running the experiment. That's using what we want to call old news. Because we did not want to include any kind of sensationalist posts. We also purposefully shared or wanted to use in our design news that were not particularly how can I say, popular in the previous years. And we chose a median of 49 shares to control how worthy they were of being read and shared and in general commented, which generally says that we wanted to pick middle of the road, not something completely judged by previous users as completely uninterested, but not the star news from the Facebook page of this newspaper. And then we divided the news as they themselves would in their newspaper version around 5 genres: entertainment and culture, arts and entertainment and culture, economy, politics, society, and sports. And then we selected two real comments made by real people from the Facebook comment fields. And from all the comments, we selected one pair that was in agreement with each other. So let's say user 1 said, "I like this," and user 2 said, "Yes, I also like this." And then we selected from the real existing data one comment that said, "I like this," and the second comment who said, "I really don't like this." But the emphasis was on real existing data. And so the level of disagreement between the comments was not very radical, because that is basically the nature of the conversation that took place in reality in 2017 on the Facebook pages of Aftonbladet, which is the most read newspaper in Sweden, including for those in the age group of our students. As you can see here, it's an example of our stimulus. We have taken lots of precautions in anonymizing the data. I can talk more about this if you're curious in the Q&A. But basically, we divided this Facebook post, this fake Facebook post. Oh, that was too many F's there. In 8 areas of interest. As you can see here, we had the source, which was always a constant. We wanted to minimize that. Then we had the standard format that eliminates any kind of editorial clues, the same line of text, the picture, the link to the aftonbladet.se, which is the homepage, and we maintain the same kind of numbers of reactions and comments. We also manipulated the identity of the commentators, so these are fake personas. And then we asked our participants to sit in front of a computer that was equipped with an eye tracking device, non-intervening, so it was not a glass, but something that was attached to the computer, not to the user. But it was in a lab situation, so our students had to come to a specific lab and take this experiment. 73% of the trials included data from both common fields, but we did not instruct the students, the participants, to look specifically at the comments. So we really wanted to know if they pay attention and how much they pay attention in, so to say, their natural environment. We measured gaze behavior as dwells, and dwells are one or more consecutive fixations on the same area of interest. And after each, and then we presented each participant with a randomly selected version of the news post, either in agreement or in disagreement. So they were able to see one article like the one you're seeing here with the agreement condition, and only once they have seen the article. We had altogether 20 stimuli. At the end of the experiment, they were asked to answer a couple of survey questions that I already presented to you earlier, something about their interest and something about their social media habits. So what are some of the results that we can already present looking at the attention, the visual attention of our participants? We can see that if you look at the total dwell time, unadjusted for the length in characters to the post, you can see there are no real differences between agree and disagree and between soft and hard. They're pretty much the same. If you look at the comment graph, however, you would see that visual attention increased in both cases, but in particular for hard news. However, what we have also noticed is that there is no return gaze, and this fits very nicely with what we know about the pattern of scrolling through a feed. Generally, users, either on screens or mobiles, do not go back to an article, but they have this kind of linear perspective, reading from the top to the bottom of any particular item. So we could not, because we had too little data, we could not determine whether the comment fields had any effect on the post, because we simply did not notice this type of gaze behavior in our participants. As you can see in my last graph, there's almost no data, less than 2 seconds of attention given to the post after reading the comments. So what are some of the results? I'm going to go quite quickly through this, but I can always dig into this more into the Q&A. We present the table of the mixed effects interaction, but we also ran a main effect test using linear equations, statistics, and basically we could see that disagreeing comments elicited more visual attention than agreeing comments, which was something that was already reflected in the graph that I presented earlier. So our first hypothesis was confirmed. Wherever the word disagreement happened, attention was increased. For soft news, dwell time on disagreement comments was higher than for agreement comments, whereas for hard news, dwell time to disagreeing comments was not different. So there was a little bit of an interesting direction there that it was not so easy to explain. But when we ran the interaction effect, as you can also see in the table above, there was a significant difference between hard and soft news. So our hypothesis was confirmed for attention. And that probably has to do with interest in the post genre, which by itself was not significant, but I think was a mediating factor. And that's what we tried to test by running participant tests, looking at only one comment or looking at the post only. And we found that respondents' interest in what the article was about had reliable positive effects on relative dwell time. So I think it's something that you would intuitively agree with. Then the self-reported likelihood to click on the post to read it. After seeing each stimulus, the participants had to answer quick quick question. They should grade on a Likert scale whether they are likely to read or likely to share that particular post. And you can see in the graph here that a lot of the answers were different when it comes to the hard news. So again, I present the results of the mixed effect. And what we see here is that the likelihood to read the article was not higher in the disagreeing comment condition than in the agreeing condition. So the disagreement condition in the comment field did not affect users' likelihood to click on the Facebook post to read the full article. Disagreement did not affect that. However, the interaction effect revealed that comment disagreement depressed the likelihood to read the post more for hard than for soft news. So the disagreement did not have an overall effect, but it had a specific effect for hard news. And that which over-trumped everything else was genre interest. So people were interested, people were willing to click on the news post if they were interested in the genre to which the news item belonged. Finally, something about distribution, which is basically the likelihood to share a news post. And again, maybe we hit a floor effect because that number was very, very low, as you can see also in the attached graph. And that again fits with the survey, since only 11% said that they used to do that. However, even though we don't have quite a lot of data, the relationship was significant because stimuli in the disagreement comment condition were associated with a decreased likelihood to share a post. And that's also something that we expected. Hard news are more likely to be shared than soft news, regardless of condition. And the interaction between controversy and hard news is not significant. And so the hard news basically is getting special treatment, probably because of the interest. Our sample had the bias in our sample for hard news. So what did we find? Again, you could screenshot this if you want to take something home from this presentation. That comment disagreement increased visual attention to comments. Comment disagreement did not affect participants' news selection. So they were not more likely to want to click and read the full text article. Comment disagreement decreased participants' likelihood to share a post on Facebook. And that hard news and soft news had generated different types of behavior, but not for distribution, but for attention and for selection. Interest in the post genre plays a significant role in the engagement with the news overall. So what are the implications of this? Well, at the level of the academic work, I think we are pretty confident in highlighting the need to take comment fields into consideration. And this is not something that has been very thoroughly explored. The two studies that I cited before, Wirsman and Sulflov, have only scratched the surface, and we hope to contribute more to this literature with our own research. Again, we have small effect sizes, as you could see in the tables, but I think this is partly due to the our use of real existing Facebook data. We could have done this through completely so to say artificially creating comments, but then the ecological validity of our results would have been highly questioned. And I think this is also something that, of course, it has to be contextualized. This is the climate, if you wish, on the comment fields of Swedish newspapers. Maybe this is different in other cultural, national, or political contexts. We cannot know until there will be more studies that would like to compare this across the various countries. And that which I think is also very interesting, users were not aware of the effect of comments on their engagement patterns. We asked them a question in the survey: how important are comments for your engagement with news? And the majority said they are absolutely not important, whereas our research demonstrates surely that they are. And I think this is also something that shows the necessity of combining observational data with self-reported data for example, eye tracking and survey. What are the larger implications, if you wish, outside the scientific world? Well, I think this definitely has several interesting implications for real-world news and social media organizations. First of all, hard news are not easily shared, and this may be also something that is worth to consider when we are, holding social media platforms accountable for distributing politically and economically relevant information, societally relevant information to a wide range of citizens. I think most of the news that we see on social media are shared because they are soft, entertaining, sports-related, culture-related, culture broadly defined news. The hard news do not get as much of a shared count. And I think this is important because we cannot then draw the conclusion social media platforms are really this informational, necessary informational channel that we can simply count on. I think we need to think about alternative ways to keep the citizens informed about politics and society and economics. By increasing disagreement level in the comment fields, for example, disinformation campaigns, strategically deployed trolls can be used to block certain stories or points of view from being widely shared on social media. So in a sense, you don't need to manipulate too much or to be very obvious in your manipulation if you are an evil actor. It's enough to plant several hardly disagreeing comments in the comment field to reduce the tendency of a certain news story to be shared, again, because sharing is a social oriented activity that is affected by disagreement in the comment fields. And then, final point, news organizations can intervene in the comment fields by correcting disinformation, and thus, in a sense, increasing the level of disagreement in the comment fields, because that would surely will increase the level of attention that is being attracted by or to the comment fields themselves. So that would basically allow the comment fields to act as a very good corrector or correcting space. And basically, this is what I wanted to say. Obviously, I have many more details to share with you if you want, but feel free now to intervene with your questions. And now I'm going to try my best to moderate these discussions, but please allow me to be a bit of a noob in trying to do so. So let's see if I can do this. Can I do this? Yes. I can actually see the list of participants. So if you want to raise your hand or signal in one way or another that you want to put a question, then I will invite you to speak. And again, my first blue hand, as I see on my screen, is from Lisa. So I will allow you to talk as it says. I believe
you can hear me?
Yes. Great, it works.
Great. Hi, Anamaria. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was really interesting, especially I think this mixed methods approach. And there, I'm not quite sure if I got everything right. So I want to just ask something. So you said you took the comments or the public post from Aftenblad from 2017.
Yeah.
And did you use this real data for your experiment, or did you anonymize the data? I'm not quite sure if I got that right.
Again, very good question. Again, I did not go into the details, but so we did take the actual comments. So the actual text, if you want to go technical, the text of the comment was identical. We made some minor corrections for emojis that were not included when we extracted the data, but the actual text of the comment was the same. However, the name of the user was changed, and so was the picture. So it was modified in the sense it was anonymized. And plus, just to make sure that it's clear, this was not an interactive post. So the experiment participants were not actually able to click and follow the news story, let's say. It was simply a screenshot, if you wish, of a Facebook post, but they were not able to actually interact with that news post. They were asked after seeing the news post on a Likert scale on a separate screen, whether they would share it or whether they would read it, but they were not actually able to read it and they were not actually able to share it.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Perfect. Yes, if you have any more questions or anyone else has more questions, please feel free to jump in.
Anamaria, I have a question. I
Yes.
guess I cannot find the option to raise my hand.
No, I think because
moderator.
just go ahead.
So, yes, I'm just going to go ahead. I have two questions, actually.
Yes.
The one is related to your operationalization of this agreement. I may have missed it because the doorbell rang and I had to run and open the door. But I was wondering, in your operationalization of this agreement, what exactly is this agreement in your study? Do you account for style of language? Do you account for? So I work a lot with uncivil speech. So I'm wondering, to what extent do you take into consideration sort of more like heavy kind of exchanges? That's the first thing I want to ask.
Okay.
The second question I have, I'm very interested in your first and your second hypothesis with regards to how this agreement might be increasing curiosity and therefore attention. I am wondering whether you have given any thought to what might be driving this, what mechanism might be behind this this process. We have a paper that's going to come out any day now in a journal in our field, and we are looking at a very similar kind of mechanism, and we try to understand what is it exactly that sort of triggers this curiosity, this attention, and we've come up with different theories. Might be the partisan identification of the person and how it might be aligned with the persons who are discussing or not. It might be the idea that the discussion, because there is this agreement, people feel that there is some salient issue here and therefore they become more curious. Or it could be because just watching people disagree is fun sometimes. So have you had any thoughts, or have you explored further what mechanism might be triggering this process?
Thank you very much. Great questions. Let me answer the first one first, because it's probably simpler. We defined disagreement as simple difference of opinion with no degree. So the degree of incivility was not counted in. And this is partly because the nature of the comments themselves was civil, I think, by most measures. So it was not signaling any kind of ad hominem attacks, any kind of rough language, swearing, insults, and so on. So it was, by most accounts, civil, but different opinions. So, and again, I want to remind you that this is not just about politics. This, some of the screenshot that I showed you was about a rock star, a Swedish rock star, and the disagreement was, I'm happy, his name is Thåström. Thåström is going to come up with a new album, was the text of the article. And the text of the article was always very objective. So it was in a journalistic, non-clickbaity style. So the first comment said, oh, I'm so looking forward to Thåström's new album. In the agreement condition, the other comment was, oh yeah, me too. And then in the disagreement condition, the second comment would say, well, I don't really much care for Thåström. He's an old man now. Yeah, so this is just to give you a flavor of the disagreement type. So there was little to no incivility by most accounts, but there were differences in the content expressed. So it was clearly positioning in favor or against the first comment. So the disagreement was not a disagreement against the post, which was hard to, necessarily disagree with because it was a statement of fact. But the disagreement was to the first comment. It was like a reply to the first comment. So you can reply in agreement. I agree with what previous speaker has said, or I disagree with what the previous speaker has said in this kind of mild term. So no particular acute terms, and definitely not what I would call incivility. And we, again, this is again why I think it can justify, maybe we can talk more about this, is that had it been a clear disagreement, like I absolutely love it and absolutely hate it, and you're stupid for liking Tostrom, or you're stupid for whatever, maybe we would have seen even stronger effects, and maybe it would have been clearer. But we wanted to keep this kind of comments, and it so is that in Sweden there were just not so very many aggressive, if you want, uncivil texts to choose from, and we wanted to keep things kind of normal, so to represent the type of conversation we have seen in the comment fields. Now, as to what explains curiosity, we've been digging into the psychology literature, which probably you have also, if you worked on this as well, and we have looked at some texts that dealt with the psychological motivation to engage with something, with some content, and I think disagreement and controversy had psychologically two different effects. It's actually very interesting. On one hand, it increased curiosity because it simply signaled relevance, as you say, salience. The two people disagree about this. I'm curious, what is it that they disagree about? On the other hand, from the psychology literature, there was also an inhibition effect. In particular, if there were strongly held views, which we did not account for because we did not want to measure across all the topics. As again, we did not just look at politics, but we looked at anything from sports to culture to the economy or business and so on. So the psychology literature said that there can be a reduction in the attention to a disagreement if the disagreement is very obvious and if it is about things that the person looking really cares about. But since we did not measure what these participants cared about across all the subjects, then we did not take into account that type of relationship. So we did not measure, as you did though, partisan identification, because a lot of the news were not necessarily partisan. They were political, but they were not taking sides. The news post did not take sides. It simply presented the results or a statement from a mayor from a town in Sweden, for example, or had the quotes from the Prime Minister of Sweden at the time, and so on. So we couldn't measure this kind of strongly held belief, and that's why, in a sense, it is simply a question of interest. I think attention is connected in our mind, in our theory, with interest, and interest can be curiosity, I guess you would call it. Simply flagging that this is relevant, flagging that this is something worth for us to spend that extra time, maybe even double checking that you read that correctly. So that's what I think is happening in the attention field. And maybe you are right that watching people disagree is something that is entertaining. I think there's some research from the reality TV world where this seems to be the case. I'm not sure if it's the same in textual form and in such short exposure, but there could be a psychological mechanism that I haven't read so much about, though, so I don't dare to comment so much. So again, to summarize, I believe that attention is driven by interest, and interest is connected to this idea of salience, if I answered your question.
Yeah, you definitely did. Thank you. And also thank you for the additional reference, because that could be a further theory to look into for a study.
I can send you some more references afterwards, like the actual study we looked at.
Yeah, please do. Thanks. That'd be great.
Yes, anyone else who would like to raise their hand and ask a question, please feel free. So even though we are not having huge amounts of time at our disposal, there's still room for at least one question if you want to.
Anyone else while Anamaria is still here?
Or you can say a comment, not necessarily a question, but if you want to make a comment, if you again are doing research in this similar arena, or if you think of other implications, also comments are fine. You don't necessarily have to interrogate me.
Okay, it sometimes happens that people cannot do not have access to microphone and can type in the chat. I don't see this this being the case here. I just would like to remind everyone that we will hopefully get the chance to have Anamaria here in Bremen sometime in the coming semester or in 2021, depending on how things evolve. And therefore, if at this point you do not have any particular questions, we are hoping to have her here and be able to bump into her at ZeMKI at the corridor and ask further questions about her research and so on in the coming months, if all goes well. Okay.
So,
Anamaria, we very much hope to have you here physically in a few months if things progress well. I do not see at this moment any further questions. So I would say that we can end our session here. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much for having me. And again, if you come up with any comments post factum, so to say, feel free to contact me. I don't think there's anyone in the world with my last name. So that's one advantage of having such an odd and hard to pronounce denomination. So you feel free to get in touch afterwards and ask me for more references or leave a comment or ideas for further research. I'm very happy to interact. And otherwise, I thank you very much. Thank you, ZeMKI, for having me. And yeah, let's hope that I will have the pleasure of seeing all of you in person at some point in the coming year, let's say. So thank you for me. I guess I'm the host, so I'm the one who should say goodbye and end of this meeting. Is that correct?
That's right. That is correct.
All right. I use my host privilege then to end this meeting. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
See you.